Good evening and welcome back to Bloody Lantern. When people think of America's national parks, they picture beauty snow-capped mountains, rivers that shimmer under the sun, and forests that stretch endlessly beyond the horizon. These places are escapes from the modern world, sanctuaries of peace. But for some, the wilderness is the last place they are ever seen. Every year, thousands go missing across the parks. Most are eventually found injured, lost, or worse. But then there are the ones who leave behind no trace, no footprints, no body, no answers. Tonight we're going to explore 3 of the most chilling disappearances in America's wilderness. Real cases, real families, real terror. And once you hear them, you may never set foot in the wild the same way again.
In the early 1990s, a small family of 3 mother, father, and their young son set out for Yosemite National Park. They wanted peace, away from the noise of the city. Yosemite, with its towering cliffs and valleys, seemed perfect. They drove deep into the park and selected a remote campsite. It wasn't one of the crowded campgrounds where tourists set up RVs. This was isolated, quiet. The kind of place where you can hear the trees creak and the wind shift through the valley. That evening, everything was normal. The family set up their tent, prepared dinner, and settled in. Other campers in the area would later confirm hearing faint laughter and voices echoing through the trees. The family had no known enemies, no issues that would suggest anything unusual. They were just another family, enjoying the outdoors. But the next morning, rangers discovered something that would leave them disturbed for years. The family's tent was still standing. Inside, sleeping bags were unrolled neatly as though waiting for their owners to climb back in. On the picnic table lay food packets, some opened, others untouched. Over the campfire sat a pot of beans half-eaten. The fire itself was still smoldering, sending thin lines of smoke upward into the dawn. But there was no sign of the family. At first, rangers assumed they had gone for a short hike. But when hours passed and no one returned, the alarm was raised. Searchers combed the area, expecting at least to find footprints leading away from the site. But the earth around the tent was oddly clean. No tracks, no scuff marks. Nothing to suggest where 3 people had gone. Their car was found parked nearby, locked, untouched. Inside the tent, their wallets and identification sat where they had left them. Who leaves everything behind? Who walks into the wilderness without shoes, supplies, or a single item? A massive search began. Dozens of rangers, volunteers, helicopters, and tracking dogs were deployed. Teams spread across miles of rugged terrain, scouring riverbanks, climbing into canyons, searching every hollow and cave. But there was nothing. No footprints, no clothing, no bodies. The official explanation suggested they may have gotten lost and succumbed to the elements. But that theory makes little sense. This was a family with a child. If they wandered off, there would have been tracks, belongings, or at least some trace of where they had gone. Yet, the searchers found nothing at all. Privately, some rangers admitted the case disturbed them more than anything else in their careers. Some even avoided returning to that section of the park. A few whispered about ancient spirits tied to the land, guardians of the valleys who take those who wander too far. The case was closed as unsolved, but to this day the campsite remains a haunting reminder. 3 people vanished completely, leaving behind only a half-eaten dinner and a dying fire. Father's Day weekend, 1969. The Martin family gathered for their yearly tradition camping in the Great Smoky Mountains. Among them was 6-year-old Dennis Martin, an energetic boy with a wide smile. That afternoon, Dennis and the other children decided to play hide-and-seek. Dennis's father watched as his son ran just a few feet away, ducking behind a bush. The idea was simple. Hide, wait, then jump out and surprise the adults. Dennis was only out of sight for a few seconds. But when his father called his name, there was no answer. The family searched frantically. They shouted, ran through the trees, checked every bush, every hollow. Within minutes, park rangers were alerted. The sun began to set, and panic set in. That followed became the largest search operation in the history of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. More than 1,400 people joined rangers, Green Berets, volunteers, helicopters, A&M-trained dogs. They scoured every inch of the forest, day after day, night after night, but not a single clue was found. What makes Dennis's case even more disturbing are the accounts that surfaced during the search. A few miles away, another family hiking the trails reported hearing an eerie scream echoing through the woods around the same time Dennis vanished. Shortly after, they saw a strange man moving through the forest, something slung over his shoulder. The man disappeared into the trees before they could get a closer look. Could this have been Dennis? Was he taken by a stranger in the few seconds his father wasn't watching? If so, how did he vanish so completely, leaving no footprints, no clothing, no belongings? Weeks passed. The search was eventually scaled back. To this day, not a shred of evidence has ever surfaced. No body, no trace of what happened. Dennis Martin simply disappeared into the forest. For many, the most terrifying part of the case is the speed. A child vanished in plain sight, in front of his own father, in broad daylight. Hundreds of searchers swarmed the area, but it was as if the earth itself had swallowed him. The Great Smoky Mountains remain beautiful, but for those who know Dennis's story, the trails carry a darker shadow. July 2018. Paul Miller, 49 years old, set out for a short day hike in Rocky Mountain National Park. It was supposed to be simple. He left early in the morning, told his wife he'd be back afternoon, and chose a popular, well-traveled trail. Paul was healthy, experienced, and confident. But that afternoon came and went. By evening, he hadn't returned. His wife reported him missing. Rangers found his car at the trailhead, locked and untouched. His trail choice was clean. Paul was gone. The search began immediately. Teams of rangers, dogs, and helicopters swept the mountainside. The trail he had taken was open, visible, and had many other hikers that day. But no one remembered seeing Paul after the first mile. It was as though he had stepped off the path and disappeared into the trees. For days, the search expanded. Thermal imaging scanned the ground. Drones flew overhead. Experienced trackers scoured the area. But there was nothing. No clothing, no equipment, no sign struggle. Almost a year later, the mystery took a chilling twist. Paul's remains were discovered less than a quarter-mile from the trail he had been on. The strange part? That area had been searched multiple times in the first week. Dozens of searchers had walked past it. Dogs had been led through it. And yet, at that time, there was in there. His body appeared later, in a place where it couldn't have been missed. The official explanation was simple. Human error. Searchers must have overlooked him. But those who were there insist otherwise. They know that area was combed repeatedly. There was no... So how did Paul vanish into thin air, only to reappear months later in plain sight? Among hikers and locals, whispers grew louder, the idea that the forest itself hides people, taking them away only to reveal them when it chooses. Paul's case remains unsolved. Another hiker lost to the silence of America's wilderness. These are just 3 stories among thousands. A family that vanished overnight, leaving behind a burning fire. A child who disappeared in front of his father's eyes. A hiker who reappeared where searchers had already looked. Were these accidents? Kidnappings? Or is something far older and darker hiding in the forests of America? Perhaps we will never know, but remember, when you walk into the wilderness, you are not truly alone. The trees are older than we are. The shadows are deeper than we realize, and sometimes the forest takes more than it gives back. You've been watching Bloody Lantern. Stay close, because in the dark, there are many more stories waiting to be told.